There we are. And all right, here we are in week 8. I'm not going to go over a lot of I'm not going to do a lot of code today unless there's some specific requests. Because like I said, I've geared the first 7 weeks of these videos to cover everything that's in the last couple. So this week is just more complicated joins using it. But there's one specific question on the quiz that I want to point out because someone asked me about it. And let me share this whiteboard here so I can give you this here. So there's that. That's the quiz question. A multi-column tuple in the parent query can work with a scalar subquery. Does anyone have any idea what that means? It's this word here that's the weird one, because what is a tuple? So I'm going to tell you what a tuple is. A tuple is a row of return data. That's all it is. It's a row of return data. So what the question is, if you have a row of data that's returned with multiple columns, will it work in a scalar query? And the answer to that is false, because a scalar subquery requires one response. If you're doing something that's scalar, you want to do it's not like where your where clause is where value equals. That's scalar. You're talking about where value in. And so that's not going to work. So when you see this question, just mark it false. Take your 2.75 points and enjoy the rest of your day. If you don't see this question, no big deal. But I know that I've had 2 students ask about this question, and I keep forgetting that it's there because this word is not discussed anywhere in your reading material. And if you look it up, if you do a Google search on tuple, it comes up with a bunch of different possible answers. But the one that's important in this case is return data, one row of return data. So there's that. Other than that, let me stop sharing this. I'm gonna stop the share. Yep. Other than that, let me open up the week's lesson here so I make sure. Let's see here. Go away. And here, modules. Let me share my screen again. Share screen, just share the screen here. Yep. All right, let me go down here into week 8. Here we go. Yeah, so any and all exists. We talked about all these previously. Yeah. Single row subqueries. So all these are things we've already talked about, and you can be able to extrapolate everything from here. So that being said, does anyone have any questions on their ERDs or how the data flow is going, or on their CRUD, or on their test cases? I replied to one student today who actually almost turned in a complete project, which is pretty amazing on week 8. I was pretty impressed. But I want to talk about the test case. So when you come up with your test cases, what I need submitted is not only the query that you're using to get the test case, but I need to know what the test case is. So in his case, he was doing a video store or something along those lines. And so I said, what I want is I want to see a query. I want you to ask the question, like, how many people rent videos on their birthday? And then see who rents their videos on their birthday. Or how many people have never seen a James Bond movie? And then get that results. The whole purpose of the test cases on the final project is a couple of things. It's for one, it's one to get you guys used to writing queries to manipulate the data, but it's also to get you guys thinking, to get you guys thinking on how how data analysts and data scientists work. It's at a very, very low level. It's nothing great, but it's like, if you're running a business and you've got like these buckets of data, unless you know how to look at them and how to use them and what to use them for, they're really pretty useless. If you've got a great business and you're selling, you got a comic book store and you're selling comic books, and you got a list, you got everything that everyone's ever purchased, and it's just sitting there. That's a treasure trove for you to dig into to like offer specialized sales. So for a real world example, I don't think this ever happened, but at one point in time, Walmart had so you all know what RFID chips are, right? You all know, okay, good. So Walmart had this plan that they were going to somehow get everyone an RFID chip, either track it, like if now that every credit card has them. So when you swipe your information at Walmart with your credit card or use your RFID chip, they record that information. So they know from that chip. So I don't know if you've ever gone to Home Depot before, but when you return a item at Home Depot, if you don't have the receipt, they just use your credit card because they keep all that information that's on the RFID chip that identifies it to you, right? So Walmart has your RFID chip information, and that can be read from anywhere. Yeah, I think you got like a 200 or 300 foot radius that the RFID chip information can be read. So the point is, they wanted to put RFID chip readers in the doorways at Walmart and put big video screens up there. And when you walk in, they quickly read your RFID chip, and then they'll see the last year, 2 years of your purchases, and they'll put up there like stuff like if every time you've been in Walmart, like the last 2 years, every time you're there, you buy cat food, they'll like put when you walk by, the screen will flash, cat food, $8.99 at aisle 12, or your phone, you'll get an email on your phone telling you that there's cat food on aisle 12 or something like that. So that's really super invasive, right? To use that data, but it's their data, they can do what they want with it, right? So if you own a business and you've got like all this data, you need to be able to utilize it to your best effect to serve your customers. So in the case of the person who's running the video store, we want to see like, if someone's never seen a specific, like what customer has never seen a Harry Potter movie, and we get that list of people, and we can take that list and we can, email them out saying, hey, you've never seen Harry Potter. Tonight, have a Harry Potter movie on us. Come get Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone free for 2 nights or something like that. One person is doing like a dog care company. And so like you can like, every 2 weeks, your dog comes in for a nail manicure and we haven't seen them in 4 weeks. So we'll send you a coupon because we haven't seen you in a while, right? So when you're doing these databases and you're thinking about these test cases, you got to say to yourself, okay, how can I use this information to make this business better, right? For example, another one, like there's one gentleman, I don't know if, I think maybe you, Joseph, I don't remember exactly, but they're doing a database for like Uber drivers or Uber Eats drivers to find like resources they need while they're driving, like bathrooms and supplies and things like that. So like, if that app like tied in to your phone and knew you were working that night, and it knows like 3 hours in, you usually want a snack, you can have you can have the database say, you can have a database query that runs like every couple hours, if the person's been working, it's 3 hours, and say, hey, you usually go over to the 7-Eleven and get you a snack. The 7-Eleven is 5 minutes away. Does that make sense what the test cases are for? It's really kind of, when we're talking about database design and data analysis, this is where it gets really interesting, because when you're designing the database, you're like going, how is this data going to flow, and where's the data going to live, and how is this, because we can't have everything in one giant table. It's not an Excel spreadsheet. We got to make these multiple tables. We've got to have them connected to each other. We need to have them talking to each other and the data flowing, and all these other things. So that's the first part of it. You know, where are we going to put the data? How are we going to find the data? How is this going to work? Where is it going to live? Blah, 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 things like that. But the second part is how do we get it back out? How do we take the structure that makes sense to us as DBAs, as database designers? And how do I put it into form that someone else could understand? You know, how can I take this data that we're holding here and present it in such a way that either A, helps the customer be a better customer, or B, helps me as a business owner help the customers be better customers and help me be a better business owner so I know my customers better, right? That makes sense, yeah? So as you guys, I think all three of you are doing the final project, as you're doing these, think about these test cases and think about how can I use this data to improve this business I'm running? But also, like, you know, so when you write the query and say, like, you know, look at the data and going, I want to know this, and this is why I want to know it. So on your paper, when you're in the test case, is saying this query is to see how many people have not seen a specific movie, so I can offer them a deal on renting it for the night to see if they like it. You know, something like that. This is to see whose birthdays are coming up, so I can offer them a special birthday rental. This is to see how many people, how many, you know, Dalmatians have gotten groomed, because I want to make, you know, March Dalmatian month here at my dog salon. You know, the one person doing the runner database, like, you know, how many people run 10Ks in March, so I can send and say, hey, there's a 10K coming up in March, like you might be interested in it. You know, but I need that. I need the justification for the test case and the code to run the test case. Okay. Good, Jenny. What?
So what type of format do you want those test cases in? Just like a Word document?
A Word document. In a Word document.
Or
that's fine.
A Workbench file?
You can do a Workbench file and comment out the other stuff.
Okay.
You know, just comment on your justification and put the either a document file or a Workbench file, whichever works for you. Because I'm pretty good. I can cut and paste the queries over. Because like I said, when you submit your files to me to grade, the first thing I'll do is I will look over your ERD. I'll grade that, and then I'll take the code that you gave me to generate the database, and I'll put that in, and I'll create the database. And then I'll take your CRUD files to populate the database, and I'll run that. And then I'll go through each of your test cases. So grading, it's really kind of fun for me because it's interesting to see your guys' work, to see how you create these tables and the flow and the evolution of it since from day one. But yeah, but with the test cases, you can be in a Microsoft Word document or just a doc or a document. You can put it in the Workbench and just comment out the other stuff. Even the Workbench and not comment the other stuff out, because you can just highlight the code and run it, and I can do the same. So however, whatever's best to get it. I'm pretty flexible in the way you send it to me. And then, like I said, the only thing you're missing at that point in time is either a PowerPoint presentation that goes over the project, or like a 3-minute video that says, you know, just goes over it. I've always thought the video is easier to do than the PowerPoint presentation. So you just record it. Here it is. Here's what I'm doing. You know, show me the mock-up that you did in Crayon. That's totally cool. Show me your ERD. Show me your test cases. 3 minutes here and you're done. You know, and it's way more fun than doing the final exam. But anyway, so I don't think there's anything. Did any of you guys want to discuss your ERDs tonight, or anything there? Any specific questions about the project?
But I mean, I can go over my ERD too, but so how many of those, I don't know if I missed, how many tests or the test questions do we need to have?
I think it's between 5 and 10.
Okay.
I think that if you give me 5, that's okay. That's the bare minimum. 10 is better. I don't know about y'all, but when I start doing those, I can sit in the course of 2 hours and like knock out, like, just, I can come up, what I would do is I would come up with like 5 to 10 test cases that you want to do, and then work on writing the queries, and however many you can get done without like making yourself crazy. With a minimum of 5.
How much data do we need to like put in to the ERD?
At least 3 rows of data in each table, because your test cases need to show stuff. So when I run the query on your test case, it can't return no data. Because I won't know if it's wrong or because data's there. So you gotta make sure at least returns one row of data. So make sure the data that goes in, will be picked up by whatever your test case is. So you could actually, so what I would recommend is, get your diagrams first, your ERD, all that set done, then do your test cases. And then input data based on those test cases, so you know that's there. So like if you're doing like, make sure like there's at least one person who's never rented a Harry Potter movie. So I usually recommend 3 to 5 rows of data for each table. And that way, if you run a test case, you can go in there and add one more of data to make sure that it returns at least one row. Yeah, because I need to make sure the queries work. So yeah. I mean, if you don't have to show your ERDs, that's not a big deal. If you think you're doing good, I think I've seen all of your reports. So I've had communication with you guys that way. But from this point on, really, until I think week 11 and 12, I don't really talk about the code and the assignments anymore because it's all stuff we've already talked about. Week 11 is when we start talking about transactions, and 12 we talk about views, and 13 we talk about indexes, and that's more academic discussions on how things work rather than actually making any code. So like I said, I try to front load the semester to give you all the code you need. So at this point in time, you should be writing these queries without a whole lot of difficulty. Is everyone feeling good in their code? Any specific questions about any of the code we've done? Anything you're struggling with things like that?
I have a question on this week.
Sure.
So when I was going through the assignment, so question 1, the one thing that was throwing me off, because I ran it, well, I mean, I ended up figuring out how to get it, but so when I was doing the subquery, because you had to link tables together,
Right.
Throwing my brain off was, so the film, I'm pretty sure the film table was the first table prior to the subquery.
Mhm.
And then inside the subquery, you reference a couple, but there's nothing that references back to the film query in that one. And that was throwing my brain off because, I ran it just by linking all tables together and just asking, what movies apply to the action
Right.
thing. And it worked fine. But the subquery is what was throwing me off because it doesn't look like you have to link in your subquery. You don't have to link those tables to the original table, correct?
Okay, so I'm in. You're gonna talk about the exercises, right? So I'm in the exercises. Which one are you talking about here?
It should just be the first one, the question 1.
Construct a query against a film table that uses a filter condition with a non-correlated subquery and against the category table to find all the action films.
Yeah.
That one. So in this case, what it's asking you to do is you're not using joins. So you're just going to put a subquery in there. So let's look at that one real quick. Let me open up this here. I hate when they use words like condition with non-correlated subquery. It bugs me because I've been doing real world. I've been real world DBA for like 16, 17 years now. And I don't think I've ever uttered the word non-correlated subquery. Okay, so I'm looking at tables here. So I've got my film table, right? And in my film table, was the category, right? Was the category where is action? The film category here.
Film table and the category table.
Okay, right. So what I would need to do here is select title from here. F dot title from film F inner join Film category. FC on F dot film ID. Equals FC dot film ID. Where FC dot category ID equals select category ID from category where name equals so if I run this little thing here, make sure I've got this right, so I'm getting a result back. Oh. Back down here. Okay, so the answer is 1 there. So if I run this. Yeah. Is that what you got?
Yeah, that's what I got, but I did it differently.
Yeah, but that's essentially what they're talking about. They just want you to do, I mean, again, these aren't the best real world examples, but all this is doing is they're trying to get you to use a subquery with a scalar response. So only one's coming through. But yeah, so you wouldn't link, so you're not linking the category table with everything. You're just pulling information out of the category table to put into this linked table here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think the route I went about figuring it out was just confusing to me because I did my select statement, or I did the subquery and the from clause, or the where clause,
Yeah.
and linked the category table to the film category
sure.
table.
That works too. You could have you could have taken all, you could have just did from film, and you could do everything in here. You could have done so let's do that. So maybe we can make that look, so you do this here. So do this. So go here. So we're gonna do select film ID. And we're gonna do here. We're gonna do category ID instead. Again. Make sure I don't get too confused with this. Okay, that should give me what I want. Yep. So then I could just do this. And let's change this to that, and change that to an in, and then get rid of all this jazz. And then this should work and give the same response. Yep. Is that close to what you did?
Yeah, I think that's how I did it. It just threw me off because in the select clause, you're joining the film category table to the category table, but then nothing is joined to the film table.
Right.
So
But yeah, and that I see where that's confusing. So what you're doing is you have this response and data, and this is where the join, that it's not a join, it's just a response. You're filtering at that point in time. You're not joining. You're just filtering the response. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just, there's a number of different ways to do it. You could have just done everything with inner joins and you didn't have to use a subquery at all. You didn't have to use
I
word
did
clause
that,
at all.
so I did that one, and then I just did it
Mhm.
with no subquery and just linked all the tables together and got it that way too.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's 10 ways to Sunday to do this stuff. This is, and so, like, just as kind of a, so what this would end up being like, so we don't talk about that here, but we could do something like, what do I want? So what we could do with this query, and we don't talk about how to do this here. So we can create a stored procedure on this, right? And so what I do is I create the stored procedure, and that's not the mother. Okay. And now this is like 5 courses down the way. So when this isn't the exact syntax I do in MySQL, but this is basically what it looks like. So what happens is from now on, when you want to run this query, you just run that and then put, like, whatever. And then you run just this. Right? So you had this query that you wrote before, right? And now you put it into a stored procedure and change this declaration to a variable, so that when you create this, right, when you execute the stored procedure, because you have got a variable declared here, when you put that value in there and run it, it takes this value and puts it there and just sends you a response. And this is how, if this were like the 4 classes down the road when we're doing this, this is what your test case would look like. You put them all in stored procedures. Because when you're writing it, when you're doing a stored procedure and you say, I want to see who hasn't watched a Harry Potter movie, that's a very restrictive query, right? We want to do something more. We want to see who hasn't watched what kind of movie, and I want to put that value in there to see what they've watched and what they haven't. Okay, so this is just a little bit of a deep dive that has nothing to do with anything, but it just reminded me of when we were talking about this. But that's where this goes to. That you just start declaring variables and put them in there, so you have these wonderful queries that can answer anything you want without having to rewrite the entire query every time. So, but yeah, but you could, like I said, with that particular number 1, you could have done it anyway. The only way that you would have been wrong to do is without the subquery, because it specifically asks for a subquery. So, everyone good with that? How you doing, Joseph? You're quiet tonight.
I'm doing pretty good. Your
All right.
comments on my papers have been very helpful.
I'm glad. Once I learned how to do voice to text on the comments, my life got so much easier. All right, Caddyshack Jedi. I'm not sure I've ever watched that movie, but I might. Bull Shawshank. Anyway, if you don't have any other questions on anything from this week or previous weeks or anything, that will pretty much end tonight, because no one gave me any questions for the ERDs in their papers this week. So
I can, I for my ED, I think I had a question from week 6, I believe. And
I apologize for that. I just realized today that I completely didn't grade the week 6 papers, which I just did today.
Oh, okay, sorry, I've been at work all day, so I didn't.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I went to grade week 7, because this is when I normally grade week 7. I'm like, why haven't graded week 6 here? Let me pull up yours to make sure I did grade it. Let me stop sharing here so we don't stop sharing. Okay, let me pull up the week 6 papers to make sure I did get yours. Yeah, that was kind of funny today. I'm like, I'm like looking, I'm like, oh, that's not right. This should have been graded. Okay, here's that. And then week 6, I have not graded them yet. Yeah, I actually have. I have graded yours. And what was your question? Oh, okay, yeah. Right, you asked where the quantity should go. That's right. Yeah. So my response was, wherever they logically go, I wouldn't put it in a separate table. I would put it in the inventory table. I wouldn't want to have a table that was just like, product ID and inventory, because there's no reason, as long it can go in the same table with the product, the product, because it will only, that number will only match that product. So you need a separate table for it. A separate table would be confusing.
So did I say, sorry, I can't remember now what my question was, but I
Your
know,
question was,
because I know, so I have multiple tables, like, so I have an equipment table and tool table. And they have price. Oh, well, no, I used to do a quantity. So I think two of my questions might have been, well, no, I think that one. I think it's really
One-
more for price.
price would go, see, that's, so the price would go probably in the equipment table, because the equipment table would, that price would only deal with that one thing.
Table. Okay.
Right. So let's say you've got the other thing was like, would you have the water sports items in the same table? So all your equipment will go in one table. And then you'll have another table that's, because you'll have another table that's like equipment category. So, and then you've like water sports would go there. So like say you'd have like equipment and like the thing like jet ski. And then, you'd link it over to another table, and that would be a water sports item. And we'd have it there because we would, for the same reasons like I said last week, we want to make sure that people can't fat finger misspell something as they're putting something in. We want to just use a drop down menu for them to figure things out with.
Okay.
And also, I can't think of the hand, but one piece of equipment might have multiple uses. Like for example, inner tubes. So inner tubes could be used on boating for water sports, but it could also be used for going downhill like downhill skiing, not skiing, but like snow hill, like sledding. Yeah, sledding. I'm from Florida, so snow is foreign to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what it is. So I would have an equipment table, have the quantity in there, have the price for the rental in there, and then have a separate table for category, and then link the two with another table, call it equipment category, and have it there.
Okay.
So when you have the water sports and stuff like that, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think that. So I still just got to figure out one more table to create then.
If you've got, how many do you have now?
9.
You're fine. Don't unless you find something organic to throw in there, just leave with 9. As long as I got between, I've said between 10 and 12, but after looking at your scheme, I think we looked at last week, and I think I don't want you to force something there that's not natural.
Okay.
So if you can figure something that goes in there naturally. And when you show me your ERD, I'll let you know, so you can put 1 in here, and that would make sense, because I don't want to convolute it too much.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey Patrick, how you doing?
Can I actually ask a question to Jenny?
You asked Jenny a question?
You're creating your whole front end, right?
I will once I get this done.
Oh,
I
I'm
haven't
sorry, 'cause
decided.
I'm like a baby in this computer stuff, so I'm in a totally different career field.
Yeah.
and have 8 years till I can retire, and so I'm looking at computer stuff. But what language do you do the front end stuff in?
Well, that's what I've got to figure out, because I'm used to using, like WordPress. That's more website stuff, but Microsoft Access is what and DB3, which is back from Windows days or DOS days. So it's a new world on the front end for me. So but I'm going to use real world data. This is all stuff that I'll take to my desktop at work and use every day. So that's kind of my next hurdle is
there are
how am I going to get this in there?
So there are a lot of products out there that design a front end, Microsoft Access, but I do live by the adage that friends don't let friends do access. So there is a tool out there that you can use. It's called Microsoft Visual Studio.
Oh, yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's if you're used to the Access front end design, it's very similar to that. It's a free download. It's a development, and it's a drag and drop kind of thing where you can like design and bring all the buttons over and put everything there.
Mhm.
It's a pretty cool application. Most people, it depends on what you're doing it for. Like if you want to do like a mobile app, most people use Python or Java for that because that's kind of where the mobile apps live.
Mhm.
However, Visual Studio uses C#, C++, J#, a bunch of other things. And it actually has a mobile app designer within it, and it will help you design it out and launch it and package it and everything. It's kind of a one-stop shop. There are other ones. I'm just familiar with Microsoft Visual Studio. That's what I use a lot, but there are other, what's the one that my son uses? I have to get the name of it. He develops little apps through some application, and I can't remember what it is. I'll text him. I talked to him this weekend and asked him what he uses. It also depends what platform you want to put it on. Obviously, if you want to do it for Macs, it's a whole different programming structure because Visual Studio won't work for iPhones because of the proprietary programming that goes with it. So you need a different application. That's why things developed in tandem between Mac platform and Windows platform or Android platform have different development environments.
Yeah,
So
and I'm
go ahead.
I'm going more for a Mac desktop, application.
Well, here's the thing with a desktop application. Here's the interesting thing about that. It can be web-based.
Mhm.
That way it's more accessible to people. So you can do when you're packaging applications to sell or to use, something like that, you got to say like, do I want someone to install it on their computer? That's a whole other set of problems. If you make an installer package and make sure it's compatible with that version that they're using. But if you do something that's web-based, they just have to go to a website and get to it, which makes it so much easier. Plus then you're housing your data. So if it's something where they're going to use your data, it's easy to do web-based because then you can host a database someplace. Most like web providers offer like, you can put a MySQL base up for free. Like you can your hosting will be like $15 a month for your app, and then the database is free as long as it stays like bitty. And if you're doing like a small app for whatever it is you're doing, I don't think it's going to become like a ginormous thing. But if it is and you're charging for it, then you can start paying more for everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to do even with front end web based, there's Wix, Wix.com that can do that, but you need something that does more of a front end application rather than just a front end like shopping cart.
Right. Yeah.
So so you'd probably look something along the lines of Visual Studio or Wix or there's a bunch of things out there. Just like look for like web development environments, and you just Google that and they'll see a bunch of different places to do, and they're all drag and drop.
Mhm.
So you can put the buttons out there, put the text bars out there, put the pictures out there, and then when you click on them, they'll tell you how to get the queries to go in there. It's not it's getting much easier to do very simple apps. I mean, if you're talking like in-depth like gaming stuff, it's a whole different world. But just like, a database backend front-end app for like video rentals or inventory, like I've made so many comic book inventory programs on a web front end. It's just easy at this point in time, just the database backend and stuff. So yeah, so that's what I would look into, some along those lines. And it's all easily self-taught. I don't know where you are with your curriculum here, but they do have classes that will teach you web front ends here, but a lot of it absolutely can be self-taught. All my stuff is completely self-taught. I've never taken a database class or a programming class. I've just taught them. So it's if I can do it, anyone can. I mean, I was a theater student for many years, so now I'm in the matrix. So, but yeah.
And when you're talking about Visual Studio, you're talking Visual Studio Community, right? Not the code.
What?
Not Visual Studio Code, but Visual Studio Community Edition. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. The free one.
Right.
Yeah, the free one. Yeah, Microsoft. Microsoft got very generous for a while. Because you can download the entire version. It's called Microsoft SQL Server Developer Edition, which is the full-blown version of Microsoft SQL Server Enterprise. And you can download that for free and use it, and they're happy to let you do it. And you can download Visual Studio Community, which is the same thing. It's a full-blown commercial of use version of their enterprise, but they can use it for developers for free because they hope that you're gonna, host this stuff over there. But the more they get people programming in their languages and using their backend databases, the more people are going to say, well, I developed this against Microsoft, so I probably should just put it out on Microsoft products. But yeah. Oracle does not offer anything for free. They are not nice. MySQL is free, and they do own that. It's an ongoing joke with my work that licensing fees, like for licensing fees for Oracle for a standard business, if you're using Oracle for a moderate sized business, you're paying $6 to $10 million a year for the privilege of using Oracle. If you're using Microsoft SQL Server, you're paying 750,000, maybe that, if that, depending on how much you got going on there. It's like Oracle is the iPhone of databases. Everything's more expensive and proprietary, and everything is, there's no bolt-ons for free. There's no baked in goodness. There's just, if you want to back up your data. It's funny, like the first time I ever installed Oracle, I'm like, where's the backup? Oh, you gotta buy that. It's a separate piece. You buy it separately. I'm like, what do you mean you gotta, it's called RMAN, and you gotta buy it separately. You can't just back up your Oracle databases. You gotta buy RMAN. So Microsoft just do everything in there. MySQL is fine. I can do everything you do in MySQL. We just talk about backing up and restoring. But so yeah, guys, just go play with these. Everything's out there just to play with. It's good to take these classes to get the real world applications, to understand the basics. But once you guys have the basics down, just go start playing with this stuff. You'd be surprised what you can do. So,
Yep.
Any else? Any other questions, thoughts? Patrick, how are you doing? You came in a little bit late. What's going on in your world?
Been sick.
That's cool. I just got over COVID last week, so
Got it last week.
yeah.
Still not feeling well.
I'll tell you something, and I don't like giving medical advice and thing, but I'll tell you the one thing that my doctor gave me, because everyone I know got hit with a secondary infection after COVID, is to get yourself some antibiotics. The second I get tested positive for COVID, he handed me a Z-Pack and say that my sister got it 2 weeks before me, or she got it right after Christmas. And 2 weeks after she was over the Z, she had bronchitis. So secondary infections can come. So, I mean, I'm not a big antibiotics guy. But he said, take the Z-Pack, and I'm really glad I did, because when I still have the cough, but everyone I know got hit with a secondary infection. So I don't think I'm gonna have that problem. Here's hoping.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't like talking about stuff like that, because the internet's full of crazy people who think that they know what they should. I'm gonna go sit out in the sun, and that's gonna cure me. Sure, that'll work.
I hear you.
Anyway. So anyone got any other questions on their final projects, on the code? Anything else? As you can see, one question can lead me down a rabbit hole for 10 minutes, so. All right, well, if that's the case, then keep up the great work, guys. If you have any questions during the week, shoot me an email. Let me see those ERDs. Let's get these things going. You guys are right on track. Everything I've seen looks really good so far, and we'll talk next week. All right, guys.
All right.
Take care.
That's good.
Bye.
Thanks so much. Have a good
Thank
week.
you.